Hi there, it's Nicole Spohr, and I am thrilled to be back with another STAMPtember project for Simon Says Stamp. This is a metallic watercolor Christmas wreath card featuring the Concord 9th Tis the Season STAMPtember exclusive limited edition set. This is a very clean, well, maybe not clean and simple, but simple, quick, and easy Christmas card to create using one of my very favorite techniques, which is a little metallic watercolor on dark cardstock. We're going to start with the large Christmas image from the Concord 9th Tis the Season set. We're stamping the image on Simon Says Stamp soft navy cardstock with a clear embossing ink and heat embossing with antique gold embossing powder. This is going to give a super beautiful, elegant design right in the center of our cardstock panel. I did start with a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of cardstock that I will trim down a little bit later in the video. Once I have the antique gold embossing powder sprinkled on, I'm going to heat set this before adding my sentiment. One of the awesome things about this particular stamp set is there's 4 different sentiments you can choose to use on the little wooden plaque or board there through the center of the Christmas wreath. There's 'Tis the Season, Thinking of You, Joy, and Merry Christmas. We're going to be using Merry Christmas today, and instead of embossing in the same color of embossing powder that I've used for the wreath, we're actually going to do a little white embossing so it stands out once we've added our metallic watercolor. This is a big, bold, prominent image, which is so beautiful for a holiday card. Something I love is that there's minimal supplies for this design. We've got cardstock, ink, a couple of embossing powders, one stamp set, and a palette of metallic watercolors. So very, very simple. I've lined up the Merry Christmas. I'm going to again use my powder bag, stamp the Merry Christmas right there on the design, and heat set that with white embossing powder. Once our embossing is done, we are ready to start coloring in the image. The metallic watercolors are a very quick and easy way to do this, plus they add that beautiful shimmer shine for a very elegant style of card. I love this palette and I use it all the time with this technique, and I love to apply the watercolor with a water brush pen. We're going to start with the poinsettias that are in this wreath. There's about 5 of them, I believe, and add the white gold color to the poinsettias. I believe I used about 5 of the 6 colors in this palette today. White gold for the poinsettias. I believe the red gold for the little clusters of flowers. And then we're going to use some of the other colors, the champagne gold and such, to get a couple of two-tone or different gold tones for leaves throughout, as well as the board that runs through the center of the design. The great thing about painting in the embossed areas is it holds the ink inside of that embossing as long as you're not using too much water, which really makes watercoloring quick and easy. I will do those little bands around the sides of the signage in a different color than what I did the sign itself for a little bit of contrast. And surprisingly enough, these little flower cluster groupings, I wasn't sure were going to show up super great, but adding that red gold to those areas makes a huge difference, and I really love how they turned out. I'm even going to add those to those little individual berries throughout the wreath design using just the tip of my water brush. There's not a ton of water on here right now, so it's mostly paint, and we'll just go ahead and keep painting this until the entire thing is finished. I do like to let mine sit and completely air dry instead of hitting it with a heat tool. So what I actually did, because One of the awesome things about STAMPtember here is that there are more companies than days of September to focus. So actually Memory Box is being featured today as well. And when I was doing this card, I was actually working on Memory Box projects, and I have another video for those that I will link up at the end of this one. And so I set this aside to completely dry while I stamped and colored my other project. That's a little tip for anytime you're creating. If you're doing something that has a wet technique like watercolor, I often will watercolor, set it aside, and work on something else, even if it's something else for the same card, and let it air dry if I have the time to do that. I much prefer air drying over heat setting, but it's definitely whatever you need to do to get the card finished. So my project is completely dry now, and I am going to take a white pen and just add in the nail detail around those bands on the sign. And then I'm going to take some Lawn Fawn liquid Stardust, and we're going to splatter this all over the surface of our background. It's going to give a beautiful little shimmery effect all over the background here. I have just put a little bit on my glass work surface. I'm picking it up with a small paintbrush and then flicking it all over. It has that same shimmer to it that the metallic watercolors do, so it all goes together beautifully. Again, we want to let that completely dry. It's going to dry pretty fast. And then the final thing I'm going to do today is take some pretty pink Posh metallic gems, and we're going to scatter these throughout and around the wreath as an additional little touch of sparkle and shine. I have trimmed this panel down off camera to 4 by 5 1/4. So when we adhere it to our white top fold card base, which you'll see in the finished photo here in just a second, it'll have a nice white matted border all the way around, which ties in nicely to the white of our poinsettias and white embossing. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this metallic watercolor Christmas card featuring the STAMPtember 2020 Concord 9th exclusive limited edition called 'Tis the Season. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring STAMPtember exclusives that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.